Hello and welcome to Living Well. Today, this is episode 59, Looking for the Bright Spots. And I'm Angela Moonin, and I think brightness and lightness is appropriate this time of year for the holiday season. Today's actually being pre-recorded. Typically on Wednesdays I go live, but I'm traveling to see family for the holidays and some new clients. And so I thought I would pre-record this. And so for whether you are watching this on the first time round, when you see this posted on Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard, or you're watching this in repeat after the fact, welcome. And I encourage you to visit my website, angelamoonin.com. Take a look at some of the other episode titles over the last year and a half or so. See if any of those might resonate for you, for where you're at on your path for living well today. And each week we talk about resilience. We talk about creating certainty amidst the chaos, creating harmony and balance in our life and work with our head and our heart. How to learn how to sometimes get out of our head and sink down into our heart and our body. That's also what my words of the week are for. And this particular episode, Looking for the Bright Spots, it's every time I come forth with a topic, it's usually not premeditated. It usually comes out of a lesson I'm just going through myself. And so I just had a really tough personal situation in a relationship where I feel like I have really gotten better at my judgment of others, and the more and more that I walk in integrity and really understand truth and total honesty 100% of the time, and owning that and being my word, all of those things that we learn more and more as part of being human, I tend to have more and more confidence, therefore, about how I am making discernments about allowing others into my circle, and even for those who show up. And I do believe that every person that shows up in our life is a mirror for us. Every circumstance, every situation, every position and opportunity, every animal, anything that crossed our path, literally and metaphorically, is about a lesson. It's about building a mosaic for our life that reveals truth to us about us. And so I'm looking at the situation that was really hurtful, and where there was a lot of deceit. And I thought, and I'm really questioning, at first I started to question my own judgment. And then my next step was, wait a minute, what is this? What is this here to show me or reveal or go deeper on about a wound that I must have somewhere within me around either commitment or transparency, whatever it might be. How is this situation triggering me? And what can I go deeper on and learn and self-reflect and embrace and give loving kindness to, and patience and understanding, as well as personal accountability in every situation. So the bright spots, whether in those personal relationships, in work relationships, if you're a business owner, how do bright spots shift a culture? Sifting and sorting for that, sorting by positivity as opposed to negativity. It isn't just about being nice. It's not just about being sunshine and rainbows. It has direct impact on your bottom line, your productivity, your absenteeism. I have some stats. For those of you who like to get logical, rational about it, I have some statistics on what it can do for your workplace when you shift your mindset and your being and your entire filtering of actions and behaviors in the office, virtual or literal, that have positive impact on your profitability, your productivity as an organization, as a team. So, bright spots. What does it mean? To me, I want to start with a little bit of wisdom. And a friend of mine shared this with me last week and reminded me about this. And so thank you, Charlie, for sharing this. And he said, it sounds a little bit, what you're talking about, Angela, sounds a little bit like Marcus Aurelius, which he was a Stoic philosopher who said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So the obstacle is the way. The challenges that we face in our lives are actually the opportunities to grow, to innovate, and to even thrive. The thing that is pressing against us most, seemingly, is actually the key to our happiness. So when we focus on what's wrong, we focus on the problem, the inconvenience, the setback, that's our tendency, right? What if we shifted our gaze? What if we looked for what's right? The lessons, the hidden gifts. And we've talked about looking for the gifts often, whether it's out in nature, in your own life, in your work, the bright spots, the gifts. It's about not just remaining positive, but learning how to reframe, like this situation that I shed some tears over myself and released some sadness around that. I definitely felt duped. And there was some embarrassment with it. I mean, all of those things that are real. We have to learn to sit with those feelings, not bury them, not ignore them, and not dismiss them as though they don't have meaning. They only have as much meaning as you give them. But if you are feeling sadness or embarrassment or whatever, it's really vital to acknowledge it and to understand what's underneath it, to turn it over and examine it. So by doing this, to reframe your experience and look for the bright spot in a situation, it shifts your clarity, it builds your resilience, and it nurtures hope, which is a key element, particularly in today's world. So today we're going to explore exactly how to do that, how to boost morale, how to dive in and reframe the way in which you see the circumstances in your life and in your work. So no matter how small the bright spot is amid the challenges, how do you see it? How do you reframe? How do you change that lens? Like at the eye doctor, right? Like, give me a new lens to look through. For you personally, focusing on bright spots does reframe the challenge, and it reminds us that we have the goods, like we've got the goods. When we're up against something and instead shift to, rather than see it as the obstacle, to see it as the way, suddenly we lean in. We get a little more curious. Well, what's that all about? What does that really mean? Is there something I really just need to sit with here and feel into and embrace and just give it a big hug? I mean, in the end, for businesses, positive workplace cultures are 31%. I'm looking at my stats, 31% more productive, a third better just by being positive, and 37% lower absenteeism rate. in the workplace. So recognizing and celebrating the things that are going right, it's not just a nice thing to do. It's actually a must. Because every business today needs that added advantage. And frankly, it takes more energy and effort to be negative than it does to be positive. I know at first that seems counterintuitive. I know at first it feels like it's extra, that it's taking more effort. It's just because it's different and you don't maybe have as much muscle memory doing that as you do the other, as seeing the glass half empty. But let's give you an example. So let's say there's a tough project, a tough team project that you're leading. Deadlines are tight. You've had some setbacks, what were seemingly at the time setbacks. The natural tendency, of course, is going to be to focus on what's not working and who's not holding up their end of the bargain, right? But maybe there was one team member who really shined, who really stepped up and delivered, showed exceptional creativity, or really showed up as a leader. They themselves were being positive and trying to shift the energy in the room or on the project. That's a bright spot. Acknowledge that person and acknowledge that person's actions specifically so that people have the opportunity to see it, not just that person, to see the action and say, maybe I can model that too. I can do that. But it energizes the whole team. When you acknowledge something like that, whether it's articulated, it is felt. It is felt on different levels for different people, and you can't predict what that might be. But we know for sure overall that it boosts productivity by 30% and reduces absenteeism by almost 40%. Let's take a look in your own work. Is there a challenge right now in your work, something you're up against, or something recently that went sideways, or maybe there was an employee you needed to let go, or maybe you as an employee had a poor, performance review? What our tendency again is to go to the negative. What happened that was right in the situation? I guarantee if you feel into it and reflect long enough, you will find it. Something will come to you. And what happens is, even if it's super small, and very likely it could be, if it was a really bad situation, chances are the bright spots might be a little slimmer than in other situations, right? If it was really small, it still emerged. There was still light there. So how do you hold on to that? How do you give that more energy? Give that your focus. Because when you do, suddenly more of that blossoms in the next interaction that you have or the next project that you work on. I promise this is true. And even in this situation, like this personal relationship that just really tanked. Man, I did not, I definitely, and I'm still sitting with it some. Here's what I know more about myself now. I know that I have affirmed that I need to be my own best support. I have affirmed that the love that someone else gives me is only as great as the love that I can give myself. I've found that, I did show up in truth and integrity, and I was transparent. And I can do that. That wasn't always the case in my personal relationships. I can do that now. And I'm pretty darn proud of myself about that. Also, I didn't let it just all slide. I didn't let this person totally off the hook. Just saying, I'm sorry I hurt you it's a start, but it's not enough. That person needs to do some inner work and needs to be accountable for his actions, and needs to take ownership of being a real jerk. Now, whether he does that, that's on him. But I expressed it and I didn't let him off the hook and just allowed him the excuse of, oh, I guess I've changed my mind about this or that or whatever it was. You're a 55-year-old man. You've raised three grown children. And they're living in committed relationships. His kids know more than he does, so maybe he should follow his kids' lead. That's and expressing that, being able to have a voice rather than, and I didn't do it in a demeaning way, but I didn't let him off the hook either. And that's probably the first time. I guess I didn't realize until I did this that I haven't ever really before fully stood up for myself and said, wait a minute, that's frankly not good enough. And you need to be more integrous walking forward. And then that tells me I need to be more mindful of what matters to me, what my boundaries are, and that I am worthy of that in return. So those things that we learn about ourselves in tough situations, that's resilience. That's saying, oh, I could just continually give into poor me. I'm the victim. Look what just happened to me. I could live there. And it's okay to be there for a minute, but to dwell there is just insanity. It's self-sabotage. So you have to take it, reframe it, and move forward with a clearer understanding and a patience and a kindness and a generosity for yourself that builds your own inner strength for the next lesson. And, and also realizing every lesson doesn't have to be that hard. We don't need to also create, mountains for us to climb. Sometimes we have a tendency to do that too. So I'm asking you to, in this next exercise, start close to home first. Life at home with family, etc. It can be chaotic. We're just during the holiday seasons, just came out of Thanksgiving, going into Christmas, or maybe it's just this morning you're whirlwind and you had your Christmas coffee or tea, whatever it might be. Maybe it spilled, you lost your keys, your cell phone got cracked, you had a fender bender. I mean, who knows what it was, right? But perhaps in the midst of all of that, there was also a moment of laughter or an epiphany, out of the mouths of babes, something from your child or your teenager or a stranger that made you smile, or that they opened the door for you and they were kind. It's just something that made you feel a little lighter and a little happier in that tough moment. Can you focus on that? Can you lean into that feeling? What did that feel like? It did feel lighter. It did feel happier. It did feel more joy. So lean into that feeling. It feels a hell of a lot better, right? So before you go to bed tonight, reflect on your day. Think about, or just write it down. Writing down helps. Write down one bright spot, just one, at least. If you can think of more, great, but it doesn't have to be big. Just something that made you feel lighter, happier, easier. Write it down. Make a note of it. True story. I had a business owner. I've told this story before, but it stands out all these years later. This is many years ago. I was working with a large dental group. It was in Raleigh. I think it was Raleigh. And I was sitting at a round table. I had maybe 10 or 12 dentists. It was a fairly large dental practice, 10 or 12 dentists in that office sitting around the table. And I asked them we asked them to do this exercise, bright spots. And they're pediatric dentists. So they're helping kids all the time. And I just said, can we just go around the room, around the table, and have everyone share one bright spot, one good thing that happened this week in the office? There wasn't a single person. Even as I got to the end, as people had time to think about it, There wasn't a single dentist that could think of a bright spot. Not one. Now, they deal with a lot of, they take a lot of, is it Medicare or Medicaid? I always get them mixed up, but I think it's Medicaid. That for underprivileged kids. So they were dealing, one told the story of like a 6 or 7 year old who came in and just a mouthful of cavities, like really bad, like his whole mouth was rotted. He actually might have been a little bit older than that because they had to put all implants in his mouth. That's a tough story, right? So they're in a difficult environment at times. But then they told the end of the story where the little boy, after he got all the implants in, like felt like he really could smile for the first time with fuller confidence. Our smiles are really vital to our own personal identity and our teeth and all of that. And so that's a bright spot. Like that moment when you held the mirror up to that little boy, right? You have to wire yourself for it because it is a heart set, it is a mindset. And we do fall back into muscle memory. So can you write it down? Can you look for the bright spots in your relationships? Life and relationships are full of challenges, but they're also full of lessons and moments of beauty. And even in this time with this person that I just said was incongruent, there were moments of beauty and there were moments of kindness. I'm not sure how much of it from his end was real, but I felt it nonetheless, right? So that's what I'm going to focus on. You're more resourceful, you see, more empowered, and more beautiful as a result of seeing the beauty. Again, it's not just, okay, I'm burying my head in the sand and ignoring reality. You're creating how you experience that reality. Yeah. What is this teaching me? What good can come from this, might come from this? And live in that place. A disagreement with a friend might reveal how deeply you value honesty. Those realizations, how much you care about the relationship or not, realizing the relationship was built on something flimsy, built on something material, built on something that's not lasting. And you realize that through the process so that you can better recognize it the next time. Another quick story that I wrote down here. I had a business owner their team was struggling with a major transition. They sold to another company. And so there was this merging of cultures, belief systems, value systems, mission, and then, not right down to the nitty gritty of processes and procedures. But do you know that in most mergers, acquisitions, transitions of companies coming together, most of it is not in the processes and procedures. That's frustrating and change is hard and learning something new tactically is difficult. Sure. The greater discontent and why you have fallout is not from the obvious changes. It's actually more from the engagement and communication level with people. Making sure that people felt heard and included in the process. That's actually where a greater level of mistrust and fallout happens in mergers. So instead of dwelling on the natural stress of the change, she started celebrating small wins in her meetings with teams and scheduling quick, not lengthy 30-minute one-on-ones or anything like that. Just a quick, hey, let me take you for a coffee, and went one by one with employees and really listened and shared and was transparent with them to the degree that she could be at that time. And over time, that simple practice of being present for that employee and taking the time to listen to them, and focusing on what the bright spots are, the small wins, it transformed her company. It transforms, and it can transform an entire organization. So at your next meeting, at your next one-on-one, whatever it might be, you start where things are going right, always. And you recognize it's not, oh, everyone gets a trophy. It's everyone's doing something right. Otherwise, they wouldn't be at the organization. So look for that, sort for that. Yeah. The ripple effect of bright spots. Okay. It's focusing on the bright spots, not just good for you. It's good for everybody around you. Okay. It's the same thing we talk about all the time. If I am more resourceful, if I am vibrating and at a higher level, if my energy is up, that impacts everyone because it's energy travels. It affects everything around you. Look at the energy of water. Look at the energy of sound, what they do. We're water and sound. I mean, we're vibration just like that. So everything we say, everything we do, be, have, function in, that has impact on a microscopic level as well as a macro level. Okay. Think across the universe, what's happening here, right here within me now more than ever impacts the whole. So when you share the bright spots publicly, whether it's in, a verbal, whether it's in a newsletter, in an email, a team shout out, you're encouraging your employees to celebrate wins, even in the casual conversations. Really important. Through that creativity and collaboration, you're going to see more and more of that flourish because people will begin. What happens with bright spots is when you are shifting towards that, you start to see an opening. You start to see everyone. It's like sunshine on a flower or a plant. Yeah. When you shine light and when you give energy to a flower or a plant, what happens? It bursts open. That's what happens to us. That's what happens to your friend, to your employee, to your spouse, to your child. But it has to start here with you. And as it does, it splashes. And conversely, you splash negatively on others as well. 23% greater profitability for companies on average that focus on strengths and achievements. That's a bright spot worth paying attention to. 23%. This is incredible. So right now, think of one thing, your work, your personal life, something you're proud of. Maybe it's a project you completed, a kind gesture, just showing up after you've had a tough day. Write it down, share it with someone, think about it tonight before you go to sleep. It matters. It matters. It's like last week, us talking about every little action, every little choice. It's the collective and the consistency of that. That's the profound impact over time. So we're going to wrap. I want to thank you for being here, for spending time with me each week, for living well today. And I want to say, as we look for the bright spots, realize they don't erase the challenges. The challenges will be there as opportunities for growth. The obstacle is the way, as Marcus Aurelius says. It's the way through. Bright spots remind us to look for the light, remind us to be the light. If you are longing for lightness or ease, it is a reflection for you to be that way for yourself, to be lighter. Take a walk, be in nature, reconnect yourself to the ground, to the beauty that's around you. Take some quiet time. Listen to your heart. Drop out of your thoughts and the chaos of your mind and drop down into your heart. Go do one of my meditations or pull up a meditation on the Calm app. Just sit with a favorite light, easy piece of music. You can say, I could say right now to Alexa, I could say, Alexa, play healing frequency 532 hertz. And it will pull up 532 hertz and it'll play it throughout my home. I'm going to be playing that a lot over the next couple of days. I play it at least once or twice a week, every week. But after yesterday, I'm going to be playing it a lot. I've already played it this morning because sound does heal, absolutely heals. There's so much scientific research, more and more every day is coming out about the healing power within the physical body using sound. There's something deeply meaningful about looking for the light and being the light, of course. Even when it feels like there are shadows all around us. Helen Keller said, look, face your face to the sunshine and look past the shadows. Doesn't mean you don't see them, that they're not there. It means you acknowledge and you face the sun anyway. Because why wouldn't you? You really want to dwell. Yeah, you want to understand the shadow. You want to release it. How do you do that? By being shadowy? No, by embracing the light and walking into the light. And a friend of mine once used this analogy, and I love it. I don't know that's an analogy, I guess more of a metaphor. Is that when you stand and you cast a shadow out in front of you, right? As you move into that shadow, what happens? The shadow shrinks as you move into it and through it. If you back away from it, what happens? The shadow grows and looms and gets bigger and bigger. So I'm not saying bury your head and pretend the shadow's not there. I'm saying walk into it and through it. The obstacle is the way. So it's a way of saying, this whole thing is a way of saying, I see the good. I see the good. And I trust there's more of it to come. I see the good. I am where I am. I have a challenge and I see that. I see the good in that challenge. I see it. And I know and I trust that it's strengthening me. It's building me up. It's giving me more personal power to move forward at a higher level of my own understanding and understanding of those around me. I invite you to look for the bright spots, friends, in your day, your work, your relationships. Celebrate them, share them, and share them. Let them guide you. Share them with me. Email me at bloom@angelamoonin.com. I always love to hear your feedback and comments, and I thank you. And I bless you with all the bright spots, all the brightness that your heart can fill up with. Thank you for spending time with me today. God bless and happy holidays. Keep shining your light.